Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man podcast. My name's Rory Paquette. I know you know that. Folks, I just love to remind myself about how grateful I am to be sitting in this chair, and you know that too. You folks have shown up like I could never have asked with the liking, the subscribing, the sharing, everything you've done for our podcast has been just utterly amazing. And from the bottom of my heart, I just absolutely have to start every episode saying thank you. If you're not out there doing what you're doing, I don't get to sit here and do what I'm doing. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. My commitment to you is to keep bringing powerful men on here with these powerful testimonies and these powerful mission statements and so on. Uh, we're going to keep doing that for you because of what you're doing for us. Now, if you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, then you know what's coming. Yeah, that's right. We have to pay a couple bills. So, let's take a sip of our preferred beverage. Man, that is good stuff. I'm telling you. And you know what we're drinking? That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee. Check them out on Instagram. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful. Just like my wife. They brew a mean cup of Joe. It's an absolutely fantastic company. They do fantastic things. They support veterans, including the young man we have here with us today on the other side of the table. I want to thank all of you veterans out there for your service. I want to thank you and your families, and that includes you, sir. And love that you have found this podcast and that you found a home. We love you, and you guys mean everything. So, all right, here we go. Let's get this going. Don't forget Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out, and tell them the power of man sent you. Let me get one more sip of this beautiful nectar of the gods. All righty, there we go. Doesn't matter what time it is, folks. I'm gonna keep drinking that stuff until I die. Here we go. We have a fantastic guest with us tonight. He is, in fact, a naval veteran. He's also a certified emergency medicine physician assistant. He's a speaker. He's an author. He's the author of Tales from the Green Side, a Barstool short story anthology. He's also the author of Art of Medicine, a warrior's profession, and he's the founder of the program of the same name, The Art of Medicine, a warrior's profession. Please welcome Johnnie Gilpin. Johnny, how you doing today, brother?
Man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Thanks for calling me young. I really appreciate that.
Hey, no problem, man. I mean, you're a fine-looking young man over there, man. It's all right. Not everybody has to get lumped into all the old, category with this long in the tooth, dude. But I appreciate you, man. I really do. You've got quite a bit going on in your life, man. We have a lot of stuff we can uncover. Let's start with just you starting wherever you'd like and telling everybody a little bit about Johnnie Gilpin and who is Johnny and what's he about, man?
Uh, well, thanks for having me. Like I said, Johnny Gilpin, these days he works as a pediatric emergency medicine at the University of Oklahoma Health Children's Hospital. Do that 10 days a month. That's it's like taking care of Marines again, except for the kids don't cry as much and they don't eat as many crayons. Mentality's about the same. All joking aside, kids. They're no different than most 20-something-year-old Marines I've known. They don't know they're broke until they can't go anymore. Somebody tells them any different. They're living life all to the moment, and they just keep going. They're amazing. So that's one of the greatest jobs I've ever had, outside of being a Navy corpsman. Um, on the other side of the house, I still do veteran disability exams, helping my fellow vets out. I spend a lot of time with my wife in the Florida Keys, fishing and enjoying life. That's writing, working, keeping busy. Life's too short to be miserable.
Right on. That's a great message all by itself, right there, man. If that we just put that on a pillow, we'd be all set. Life is too short to be miserable. I love it.
Yeah.
The now I know you got a lot of this stuff that's going on. You're working with you're helping people out. You're working in the medical field. You also have a publishing outfit that you run. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we started this program. I'm a Pat Tillman scholar.
Yep.
The Pat Tillman Foundation paid for me to go back to school. And so, working with some other guys, I got the opportunity to be a Warhorse writing fellow with the Warhorse Journal. If you've never don't know about it, man, it's a great thing to reach out and check out. It's called the Warhorse Journal. It's a online journal that dedicated strictly to veteran stuff, and they publish every month, or excuse me, every Wednesday, veteran reflections and stories. Really great program. TJ Brennan, the guy who started it, was a Marine in Fallujah. Um, anyway, so they're very big with the Tillman Foundation. It got me into writing. And so when we started working on stuff, it's hard for small guys to get their stuff out there. So I have this really big problem. You know, Teddy Roosevelt said, somebody asks you to do something, tell them, yes, I can, and then get busy doing it. And so somebody said, man, we need to start a publishing company. I said, well, I can do that. And well, we did, went through the whole deal, set up an indie company through um, the Library of Congress, got everything set up, and so we set up, help guys just kind of, we've got our publishing, so we're self-publishing. It's kind of a self-publishing thing, and then we're working with some other guys right now to start getting their stuff out. And then we publish for my Art of Medicine program. They publish all the books that we do for that, all the media. So that's kind of where it's working on that aspect. It's been very helpful uh, from that component. And then the books is what we write. And we got some cartoon books coming out. The guys who draw the cartoons for my stuff, he's got some cartoons. So we've got little different things in play. And it's hopefully it's a good, it's more of a small thing, but
Okay.
it's a platform to get things out there when nobody else wants to listen.
Nice. I love that. That's cool. It's 8404 Publishing, and I know
Correct.
Navy guys are going to get that, and Marine guys are probably going to get that. But I got some guys from the other branches. I'm not sure if everybody's going to get that. So that's a rank of some kind, right? Tell me about the
Uh,
8404.
It's designators, your job title. So like
Ah,
in the Army, 11 Bravo is an infantry guy. In the Marine, 0311 is an infantry guy. So in the Army, a combat medic is called a 68 whiskey. So, and now it's changed a little bit, but an 8404 was when I was in up until recently was the designator if you were a FMF, Fleet Marine Force Corpsman. The Marines don't get their medics from the Navy, or I mean themselves, they get them from the Navy. And so that designated you as a FMF Corpsman,
yeah.
8404. So,
Nice.
yeah, so that's where it
Nice.
comes from.
8404 Publishing. All right. So you're technically self-publishing these books, even though you're going through your own publishing company. I mean, it is still self-publishing. So you're not
Yeah.
working with some other publisher to get these books out, right?
No, no, it's still self-publishing, but
Yeah.
it allows us to go through and get our own ISBN numbers. It allows us to get them published into the Library of Congress.
Yeah.
So the book, so it's doing the same things as that, but it's more on the indie style. And so in learning all of the publishing and the concepts of getting them published. We're working now with a project with some incarcerated veterans and stuff. So I don't know.
Interesting.
And yeah.
Okay. All right. Tell me about this first book. Okay. Because I looked at it, I checked out the cartoon. Interesting. Tells a story. I'm going to leave that to everybody's imagination. Go to his website and look it up, folks. It's going to be in the show notes. I loved it. It got my attention. Tales from the Green Side, Barstool short story anthology. Without giving everything away, because hey, if people really want to know what's in the book, they can go buy it. All right. So we're not trying to give away the secret sauce here, but just give us an idea, right? Amazon style of what is in the book, what they could expect, what it's about.
Well, the difference between a sea story and a war story or a fairy tale is fairy tale starts out once upon a time and a Navy sea story starts out, well, there I was.
Okay. Gotcha.
And and so, during the pandemic, I worked in the emergency room. And, I've been very involved in mental health aspects and even myself. So, it was a war zone for many people, especially if you worked in the ER or ICUs and stuff. And so, they're talking about writing this stuff down. I didn't need to write the bad stuff down. So I just started writing some good things down. And the actual Tales from the Green Side, the guy who drew the cartoons, actually published a cartoon book, self-published him through Kinko's years ago in 1997. Some of these cartoons. His name's Rob Krager. Rob is assistant fire chief now at it's Central District Fire, whatever. It's Disney. It's the fire service in Disney in Orlando,
Okay.
and amazing cartoonist. As you saw the cartoon,
Yeah.
has a little different sense of humor. And so we started taking the stories behind the cartoons and we changed the names to protect the guilty. Uh,
Okay.
and there's a character in the book. His name is Stanley. Matter of fact, he's named after I won't a friend of mine, a fellow corpsman that we've known each other now for 30 years or more. And I asked him, his wife was reading the book, and I said, "Well, what'd she think?" And he goes, "She came out and says, 'Please tell me you're not Stanley.'"
Uh-oh.
Uh, yeah, and so, but when I wrote it for myself, um, it was a cathartic, maybe the word I'm looking for. That's what it originally started out. It was a way for me to get out of my head. I would come home at night, working the late shift, 3 to 1, whatever, and I'd sit down before I could go to sleep. Uh, and my wife was in bed or whatnot. And, you know, how do you come home? You can't come home and tell your wife that this on the beginning of your shift, somebody our age died, and you had to go out in the parking lot and tell with your attending and watch him tell the kids that their dad died, and by the end of their shift, you went out and told them that their mom died, right? And these are people your age. And
Wow.
so, yeah, so I came home and it was just started as that's how it started. And so when it started coming together, um, I sent it to some friends and they're like, "Oh man, you need to do something with this, right?" And so I sent it. Some of the people who read it, like one of the guys was the former sergeant major, command sergeant major, Second Marine Division. Another buddy, we served together. He was one of my sergeants. Another guy was the head senior enlisted uh, corpsman for Second Marine Division, and above that, Marfor Lant, command master chief. So a lot of people read the book and had great things about it. It was the number one medical fiction and number one doctor and medical humor book when it came out for a little while. So, but what really caught me is that I sent it to my old battalion surgeon, uh, who he only had a short 4 years in the military. And then he went on to, he works at Mayo Clinic now. And when he sitting back, he didn't send me back like a short message. Hey, great book, looks great. He sent me back a 2 or 3 page email that
Hmm.
turned into like 2 or 3 pages. And he didn't say anything. Hey, Johnny, great book. Johnny, he didn't say anything about the book. He told me about his military time and how he remembered this and he remembered that. And we lost 14 guys in 1996, 4 days before my 25th birthday. One of those guys were 12 Marines, a fellow corpsman, and Army Staff Sergeant. And one of the guys, right a couple days before he got killed, had given Dr. Billings a cigar, Cuban cigar. And Doc talked about how he still had that Cuban cigar. He had never smoked it. It's still in his hunting cabin, right?
Yeah.
And so he told me about all of these things. And that there told me that it did somebody else reading my work did the same thing that it did for me writing it. Does that make sense?
Sure does.
And so I asked him, I said, "Hey, Doc, can I put this in the book? Because this is huge, right?" And So nobody else had read it till it came out because all these other guys who did it, nobody had seen that until I wrote it, till I published it.
Hmm.
And because he said, "My words are your words," is what he told me. And so it's called the Reflections of it. It's kind of like another short story, and it's called the Reflections of a Battalion Sergeant 25 years later. And so that was the first time. And then I had another guy who had served in Vietnam reached out to me and said, I haven't talked about my service in 50 years. He said, I couldn't talk about some of the things, but he said, I haven't really wanted to talk about my service because how things were when he came home. And this guy I've known for a long time. Uh, this guy's done a lot of amazing things in his life, but he hadn't talked about his career with his family. And so he said, now I feel like I can talk about that. Uh, and if you read some of the reviews on Amazon, of course, there's one guy, there's always that one guy who can't stand your book, right?
There's always one guy.
Yeah. But one guy said, man, I love the book. He said, I give it to my family because they can understand the gibberish coming out of my mouth. So that to me was, uh, that was, if I never sold a copy or never whatever, it did that. That's what it did. To me, that was just amazing. And so now, the book is a calling card. I
Yeah.
walk people, or somebody, I see vets all the time, and somebody asks me about it. Hey, here's a book, read this. Go ahead. If I think, and so, but lots of people still buy. I still sell quite a few copies. Still get residual income from uh,
I'll bet.
Amazon. But
Nice.
yeah, I mean, that's what it was about. And so the stories are, um, we changed to protect the guilty, but everybody has a Stanley, and that's one of the things about it. Every it's written from a Navy side point of view, but I don't care if you were in the Army or the Navy or the Marine Corps or the Coast Guard or the Merchant Marines or you're in the fire department. There's a Stanley and a Frankie the Freak, who's the two main characters, and those two guys, everybody knows that guy. You probably know that guy. You
Right.
at work. You've got a Stanley at work.
Right.
So
Right. Interesting. All right, man. I can't wait to read this book. It sounds amazing. The that was your first book that you wrote.
that was the first book that I wrote. Yeah.
How did that feel to connect in that way with these guys that matter so much to you?
Um, it was it was just overwhelming. Uh,
Yeah.
and that especially with guys that I knew, it was very overwhelming. But I had a guy uh, who happens to be a retired PA from Kansas reach out to me. He kept calling me, and finally I was able to reach out, get in touch with him. Uh, but he retired as a PA now, but he had served as a corpsman in the Tet Offensive in 1968 with the 5th Marines at Way City, and then at Case On. And at the beginning of the Tet Offensive, he was like an E1 or an E2. And within a month, he started out, he was the most junior corpsman. And within about a month and a half time frame, he was one of the most senior corpsmen.
Mm.
Uh, you
Wow.
know, he, and he talked, and so he read the book and he reached out to me. He said, "Man, I want you to come speak." So I uh, got the opportunity to go to Kansas City and speak as he's part of this program called FISH, Friends in Service of Heroes, where they help family guys get like wheelchairs and help guys go hunting and fishing and they get
Cool.
to yeah, it's a great program, but it's part of the American Legion speaking series.
Okay.
And so I got to go to Kansas City and speak. So that, everything I've done is connected dots to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing.
Right. What was it like speaking to these guys, like in person, up there in front of a room?
Well, it was great. I mean, I've never had a problem talking to. My dad always said I could talk to a fence post, and my wife says, we can't go anywhere without flying somewhere, and I haven't run across somebody I know. Training. I've trained thousands of first responders over the years, and so we running somebody I know. But when I got done speaking, this guy walks up to me, and I had a lapel pin, and he said, "So that's 2-8, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Were you involved in Operation Purple Star? Were you the corpsman from Operation Purple Star?" And I'm like, and I didn't really say that. I just talked about losing the guys, and I didn't say really a time for. And I said, "Yeah, why?" He goes, and this guy looks like a biker. I mean, big long beard and long hair, and he goes, "I was the commanding officer. Not, I mean, we're talking a lieutenant colonel, oh, and he said I was the commanding officer of Second Battalion, 8th Marines, like 2010 to 2013." He said, so that was my company. So like he was, so, and he goes, "I know who you guys are," and he said, "I know all there's a memorial to those 14 out front." So, it's part that is written into the history of the unit. And
Yeah.
so that was pretty interesting to you can't meet somebody like that. So it's been it's carry on the legacy of my friends,
Love that.
my
That's a
brothers. Yeah.
great purpose to have, man.
Uh,
Clearly, you're out here trying to serve. I mean, you spent a lot of time trying to serve. You're trying to serve your brothers now, which is awesome. The second book slash workbook slash program, right? The
yeah.
the Art of Medicine, a Warrior's Profession. Is that born of the Tales from the Green Side book, or was it the Tales of the Green Side book that gave you that, sort of chutzpah to go out there and put this other one out and start
The,
this new program?
no, completely separate, really.
Okay.
Um, I mean, like I said, I'm never. My wife hates that Teddy Roosevelt's my hero, and that tells me you'd say something, and then yeah, I can do it, and then figure out. It gets me in trouble a lot. But no, I've lost a lot of friends over the years, uh, and worked to. I hate that. I've always. I remember my dad. I remember disappearing sometimes when I was a kid. My mom would be so pissed off at my dad, but he'd leave and he'd come back. But as I older, but he'd only be gone a couple days, nothing major. But I remember my mom would get mad at him, and he'd come back. And as time got older, and I'd hear stories, he had a couple buddies of his uh, that when they would that he had served in Vietnam. This one guy, he'd served in Vietnam. My dad was from a small town in southwestern Oklahoma. Matter of fact, when my aunt retired from the post office, they closed the post office because the post office was in her house. And he
Wow.
ended up going to, yeah. And so he ended up in Vietnam and wound up in the same unit as a guy that was 2 years older than him. Small world, right?
Hmm.
And so this guy came back and he was kind of had bad, but my dad, the guy's wife would call my dad, or he'd call collect from jail or wherever he'd be. And my dad would get in the car and go, no questions asked, right? And so I grew up in understanding that. As I got older, I understood it more, right? When you're a little kid, you don't understand that, but as got older, I heard the stories, and then of course we talked about it later. But so that is my. And when I came home, my dad, the first right after I got home, my dad told me never talk about it. Um, Civilians don't care. They don't want to know,
Wow.
even when they ask.
Uh,
Fast forward about 18 months, my dad had gotten sick. He was 50 at the time. He died at 55. He got an Agent Orange cancer, and he said he took me. I came home on leave, and we went to the Veterans Readjustment Center, and we he said, "Don't wait 30 years to talk about like I did, to talk about all of this stuff." And so that was the beginning of a trip that, and since then I have maintained, and of course I've chosen a life. God gave me this skill set, and it's a curse and a gift. I, I went from emergency medicine or the military to disaster response to, emergency medicine. Now I'm in pediatric emergency medicine, which most people think I've lost, I've gone completely off my rails. Maybe I have, but it's where God's put me. But it's also hard on family, it's hard on friends, it's hard on, you know, so, but I have maintained in that, so this leads me to 2 years, it'll be 3 years this February. We lost 6 kids in about 3 to 4 week time period in between end of February, middle of March. And I had been involved in the care some way, form, or fashion of three of those kids.
Okay.
One of those kids, I was directly like, me and another guy with hands off bagging, uh, chest compressions, the whole, right there. And this kid was 4 years old, and he died from asthma. And we'd worked this kid a very long time. One of the docs, this attending, who I'd known from when I was doing my fellowship, I known he was a young fellow, a pediatrician. I'd known him a very long time. Great doc, good friend. And he had a young child about this age. And in life, anything we do, something goes wrong, you go with your kids or whatever, you play fast forward, back, fast forward. You know what I'm talking about. You're doing it in your head.
Yep. 100%.
And so he's doing that. And you could see ER. And so we were doing this fast forward, rewind, and so um, as we were talking about, and so I walked up to him, and we had a ER full of people. The had a probably the I'm sure the out front was full too. It's flu season, RSV season, all that. But I walked up to him and I said, we did it right. He said, what do you mean? He said, what? I said, we did it right. And I said, sometimes there are things at work bigger than us. There's God,
Mhm.
something. And it's like you go back to that day, 4 days before my 25th birthday. We saved two pilots that day, and the three of us corpsmen who were involved in that, we could have all been the greatest trauma surgeons in the world, and it would have changed the outcome. Now, I beat myself up for a very long time because the two people we saved I never met in my life, and the guys that died were close friends. But that changed me on how I was it focused how I was going to how I got to where I am today and how I drove myself. But either way, is like I told him, I said, we did it right. And he had looked at me and he goes, you've been doing this a long time, right? And that was my 28th year. This is my 30th year in emergency medicine in some form or fashion, whether it be a corpsman, medic, PA now. And I said, yeah. I said, why? He said, how do you do it? And I said, do what? He said, this. And, kind of put his hands around,
Yeah.
like, I said, well, I don't do it very well. I'm an absolute mess. Ask my wife. Typical deflection, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, you're still here. Now, that, you know, it wasn't what he said, it was the inclination. And you think about it, and so it ate on me for a couple weeks. And the inclination is, and you think about it, is that as a veteran, you've heard 22 a day. You've
Of
heard
course.
that. And then 1% of all suicides in the country, I'm going to have to sit down and calculate how many that are, because 1% of all suicides in the country are first responders. So about 51% of those are cops, 21% are firemen, 18% are EMS, and 2% are dispatchers. That's a lot of people, right?
Oh yeah.
And so, and then we lose one physician a day to suicide, twice as likely to be females. You start lumping in PAs and nurse practitioners and this whole. So here I am in these three high risk categories. Well, what makes me different? Well, I'm going to be the first to tell you, I, I am no better than any of those people that we have lost. I'm actually probably weaker and less resilient than any of them. However, I have three things, and this is what I went back and talked with Ryan about. Is I said there's three things that I think that the reason I'm still here, and this is where this book kind of goes to. Is I said one, as I said, my faith in God. Um, I grew up Methodist, and we're going to a Baptist church. I'm a really poor Methodist, but I'm a really bad Baptist. You, I'm not the best guy. By job, we're not always in church. We're not doing those things, but that doesn't take away from my faith. I have seen enough in my life. That day I should have been burnt really bad. I had a turkey buzzard flap and hit me on my motorcycle, and I'm still here. I fell asleep one night driving. I'm still here. God doesn't always talk to me. He hits me upside the head with something. And second is that I told him, I said I have a Rolodex, and I said friends, and I found out that depending on the age group, I have to show pictures of what a Rolodex is. But I've changed it to I have a Rolodex of brothers and sisters that I can pick up the phone and somebody's going to answer, right?
Right.
And that's a reciprocal relationship that they know that I'm just like my dad. That's what my dad did, right? When that guy called, my dad was there. And so that's that component. So there's somebody there. There's a backstop. There's always been a backstop. And this last May or last March, my wife something happened, and she ended up intubated and was in ICU for 3 days.
Man.
And I had to watch. I was in the ER with my people that I knew, and they're like, "Johnny, we have to intubate her, and you don't need to be in here." And so I had to walk out and leave, let these people that I trusted, that I worked with, and know that, hey, pray to God. I knew they were great at what they did, but I had to give up that's what I do. This is who I am.
Right.
And so I made a phone call to this husband and wife team that I know there, and they were there. And his wife went in and was able to be in there while I'm out on the floor outside the room, knowing what's going on in there, right? That is huge. And knowing that I need to make that phone call is huge. And that goes to the third thing is that when my dad took me that day, he started me on a road of learning tools. I learned that a hammer's not just meant for driving nails. You know, that concept. So I had that Rolodex, but I also knew I had to pick up that phone and use that phone to call those people because I knew that then I called my brother, the people these people to call that insulated me. And so the next day, our church group is all there. People are bringing food, and that insulated group carried me and my daughter and my family. My son was in St. John, and it was hard for him because I told him I said you can't come home because I didn't. She's on in ICU and stuff, and I said you're going to be in the airport, and you're going to be in all this stuff, and you'd have to be quarantined. You stay there, which is very hard for us to do. So God Rolodex of friends, tools, right?
Right.
And so he says, can you think you can put that together? Because at the time he was in charge of the Pediatric Emergency Medicine Fellowship there at Children's. He goes, you think you could put me together a class? You see where this way, right? I saw that smirk.
Yep. Asking Teddy Roosevelt.
hmm Yeah.
Right on,
Um,
man.
yeah, and so I said, sure. Yeah. And so fast forward June. So I started working on this and I'd gotten involved uh, with a program called No Barriers. Uh, and it was started by Eric Wymer. Eric was the first blind guy to ever climb Mount Everest.
Okay.
He has done, you probably have seen him. Eric's a great dude. Great, really amazing man. The guy who started, took him to Everest, his name is Jeff Evans. Jeff is an emergency medicine PA. He's a mentor of mine uh, that when I was in PA school, I met. Um, Somebody said, hey, we need a speaker. I had met him just once. And I said, all right, I'll get a speaker. Again, I'll make it happen. I sent an email to him, said, hey, this is what we're doing. And since then, we're 8 years, we've been friends, and I've helped him with a book, different things. And that's how I met Eric. And so it originally started out Soldiers to Summits post 9/11 because they climbed it in 2000. And now it's this whole thing that's now for anybody who has physical disabilities or invisible disabilities to get out into nature. And they had the Warriors program. And during the pandemic, they put together this program based off of Eric's concepts of rope team summits, vision, alchemy, reach, 7 life elements that Eric's come up with in his life. And it's an amazing program that was geared at veterans. And they kind of have a book and some stuff out. But we were hiking with Eric, raising money. And I said, Eric, I said, this program, these concepts, I said, I want to take them and take them to healthcare, first responders, and put my military and different things. He said, do whatever you want. And so we took Eric's concepts that he had learned from becoming blind about 10, 12 years old. And now that's where we're at. So it's built off of Eric's concepts. And I started taking, where he talks about a rope team. And, in mountaineering, a rope team, when you fall off a mountain, the rope team's to catch you, right?
Right.
Well, we talk about you got to build your rope first. So, and this is, Ecclesiastes 4:12 says, one can be conquered, two can stand back to back, and won't be overtake. It can conquer, or one can be overtaken, two can stand back to back and conquer, but a three-stranded cord is not easily broken. Talk about King Solomon, right? So we're building this. See where we're going here? Well, a 1943 Army manual talks about the three-man foxhole is the most uh, efficient foxhole, well protected foxhole. One can be on guard, one can be resting, one can be doing maintenance and eating. But it's harder to overtake a three-man foxhole. The foxhole principle.
Hmm.
Different people talk about it from David Goggins to John Maxwell. But we bring it in this concept is that this foxhole principle goes back to the Rolodex. And so to build before you can have a rope team, you got to build a rope. King Solomon says the three-man foxhole principle. And this is where this book kind of comes in. And we ask people, who's the three guys two guys in your foxhole, who are you going to call? Who are the two people that, are going to be there, your backstop? Who are those, and That's part of this program, this book. Is that's one of the things in the first 4 hours of the book, in the first part one of the book, is we talk about the foxhole principle. And I ask, people, who are those guys? Who is that guy? You got to have one guy who's showing up with the shovel, right? You got to have one guy sitting on the bench next to you. Um,
Gotcha.
and so, but when we ask about characteristics, um, we have them write out the characteristics of who they're going to be. Um, but some people will say, "Hey, I want to change," but then you have somebody like my wife who, I have friends that I've had since I was 4 years old. 17 of us started school, kindergarten together, and we graduated together. uh, you know so, and then I have my military. I have this different groups of friends that I've had, but but my wife never had that. She's never had that luxury of that type of friendships. And I see a lot of people who are that way, and that are introverts, but I also know a lot of extroverts that get into situations that at work or whatnot, and they may not have that. So what do you do in that? Well, I talk about, well, there's three kinds of people like that. So you have this category that are the direct contact, like those guys that I see all the time, that like my buddy Rob and different things, or I work with. And then you have this indirect group, and that's like Eric. I don't talk to Eric. I may not talk to Jeff all the time, but if I need them, they're there. But then you have my wife. She doesn't have any of those. Or somebody. Then I have this no contact group of people. I've never met Teddy Roosevelt, never will,
Right.
but he is a mentor in my life. You know, Pat Tillman, I've never met Pat Tillman, but he's been a great mentor in my life. His best friend and brother-in-law is Alex Garwood, who's become a great friend of mine and a great mentor, who's in this indirect group. But I've learned about who Pat Tillman was because of all my conversations with Alex, right? Um, I've never met David Goggins, but during the pandemic, I my only time away was running. So I got where I listened. Do you know who David Goggins is?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've read
So
just about all his books.
so have you ever listened to Can't Hurt Me, the podcast? If you've never listened to it, you need to listen to it.
I had not listened to it because I read the book, but I haven't listened to it. No.
Listen to it. You'll
Okay,
get so much more out of it.
I will.
It's like a podcast. It's so much more. And so I listened to that book 14 times during
Wow.
the pandemic because I could put it on, it's like 14 hours. And so I was running, and so I've never met David Goggins, right? But he's in this indirect category, and he has made a huge major impact on my life. And during the
Yeah.
pandemic, I survived. His concept of the cookie jar has changed my life and how I've impacted it and how it's written into my program. So my wife, I introduced her to David Goggins, and she loves. I mean, she's listened to his book multiple times, and now his new one. So that's what we're doing. That's how we're going. I've been rambling, and I apologize.
Please don't, because you've been doing a great job. And the story behind what you're doing is just as important as what you're doing. So people understand the why, behind it. So, um, I mean, with the tools you've developed in the program, the actual book, The Art of Medicine, you're right, A Warrior Profession. The book itself is a workbook for these guys to utilize that are in the
Yeah,
program, right?
yeah. So the program is set where you turn off your phone. There's no there's no digital copies. It's all about working through everything.
Hmm.
Um, and it's old school. Um, I wanted everybody to do it number two pencil, but my wife said that was just taking it a little too far.
Those are hard to find, man.
Yeah, but so we have them write down. Okay, we have drawings and stuff. Okay, who's your foxhole buddy, right? And so you identify who they are, draw it out, and then we say, okay, what's their characteristics? We write it out. And the last thing. I thought I had one of the postcards here in front of me. So the last thing we do is we have them send, we have postcards. This is what everybody loves is we have a postcard. I thought I had one laying here. Um, it has I know there's one here somewhere. I thought I had one. So it's a drawing of a foxhole. Yeah, there's one. Can you see it?
Yes, I can now. All right.
All right, so
Got it.
we have them send. This is that. So everything in the class is active, right? In the workbook is active.
Okay.
And so we have them actually take a postcard and it says, "Will you be in my foxhole?" And so we have them send this to the two people that they want. And what
Wow.
this
Okay.
does is that when you get this, so I'm going to send this to you, Rory, and you're going to get this and you're going to go, and you're going to pick me up the phone and you're going, "Hey, Johnny, what the hell is this card?" Because one of the things we tell them, "Are you going to be my foxhole?" But you're also going to say, "Hey, this is a reciprocal relationship. I want you to be there for me, but I'm going to be there for you," right?
Okay.
And so now we've created what? A
I mean,
two
right.
downstream effect. We created the conversation, that it's just not in our class, but now we're actively creating the conversation. It's not a text, it's not an email.
Right.
And as well as I do, you get something in the mail, you keep that, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so we do that. That's part of it. Um, and so that's why we're doing it. Everything we do, about the cookie jar, we have them do what I call resiliency data points. Um, you can see it's a kind of a climbing to your summit.
Yep.
And then we have them do these things, and then we create their own cookie jars. So everything, the whole book, it's a workbook. It's actually shut everything out. It's going back old school. It activates the reticular activation system, brain,
Hmm.
hand, and we rolled this out. I piloted it with PA students and some our disaster response team. But we had a tornado come through Sulphur. If you remember down, like you were headed to Dallas, where the mountains were there, they had the Turner Falls and Arbuckle Wilderness and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had a tornado come through, wiped the town out pretty much
Hmm.
one night. And it was a community that I worked in as a paramedic, and so it was a big deal. And so about so it happened in April. August, we rolled in and we did this class for all of the first responders. Uh, and man, we've got so much because we went in and said, "Okay, hey guys, we have this program called the Oklahoma First Responder Wellness Division." And so
Okay.
they were getting the individual counseling. But now we went in and said, "Okay, hey guys, let's take the time, let's work on some skill sets." And so we actually used it in a setting where people, and then we've done it other places now too. But yeah, so it
No, that's
works.
amazing, man. It really is. And that it sounds, I mean, everything you're talking about, just the fact that they're participating in the program, then they're bringing other people into the program, right? And so now there's interaction from outside. There's, some credibility that's being built also within the program. Like, hey, this is real,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I see where you're going with it. It makes total sense. Sounds like something that guys would buy into pretty easily.
I think they do. We're starting Oklahoma State Fire Service training. Uh, when we always, I took it to OU at first, and a new director came in and said, which turned out to be a good thing because the Oklahoma State Fire Service training adopted it as their mental health program, and we're working on that right now. That's kind of, we'll
Excellent.
see. Yeah. Disney, we're working on a program with Disney right now, and some other stuff. So I don't know where it's going to go, man. I don't, you know, um, them on uh, on guard duty, and they're still on liberty, and they're not always paying attention until I'm just about there, and then they pull me back. Um, but I truly believe the first time in my life that I ever heard God speak to me, like really truly say, Johnny, this is what you're supposed to be doing. One day I was in church and I felt that feeling. So this is where we're at. This is what we're doing.
You
And
can't get
that's
a better endorsement than that, brother.
and so my this lady she is Dolly Parton and John Schneider's media person, and she is the media person for the Oklahoma Academy of PAs. I'm on their board of directors now.
Okay.
And she came up to me and she said, "Hey, I love this program. I love what you're doing." She goes, "I want to help you." And I'm like, "Okay." And so she goes, "We got to do some things." And I was like, "All right, what do we got to do?" She goes, "First of all, we got to change your website up." Okay. And she goes, "We got to get you into digital media." And I'm like, "What?"
Oh yeah.
She's, and she goes, "We got to get you out there." And she goes, "If you get out there, they will come." And I said, "All right." And so that's how she told me to get on Podmatch. And yeah,
Nice.
so yeah, yeah. So this is my day off, and you're my second one today.
I
Uh,
appreciate
yeah,
it.
yeah, and we, couldn't. I think you had a problem on Saturday, so yeah. It's been very, very receptive. People have been amazingly receptive. So
That's great. No, it really is. That's fantastic, man. And I look forward to hearing the rest of this. So, I mean, the next thing is putting together a podcast of your own, right?
yeah, yeah. So kind of my wife's idea. It's called Embrace Your Struggle.
Nice.
Um, about a concept that we started before all this is that, it's something we've lived on. My wife and both of us, I've been basically medically retired since I was 28 years old. And so, I could either be that guy who just accepted it, or I'm going to be this guy. I'm going to hurt. So I might as well hurt doing cool stuff, right?
Right on.
Um,
Amen, man.
you got to hurt one way or the other, right?
Right. Might as well be productive doing it. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
and so this again, this lady who's helping me, she's like, "Let's build you a podcast." And so sat down, and I know nothing, absolutely nothing about this in September. And so we've been, equipment and gear and reading and, you know, stories about what makes it successful, about, make sure you got at least 10 things written, and, how to. And
Oh yeah.
of course, I've got 1,000 Tillman Scholar friends, that to apply for. But basically, we want to take what we're doing with the art of medicine, which the program is now the art of law enforcement.
Okay.
It's also the art of struggle or the art of living, which is anybody who's not first responders. So it's veterans, and it's taken on its own. And so there is it's 2 4-hour classes, one full class. So for each program, there's going to be 3 books, two separates, and then one full.
Excellent.
So yeah, so a lot of work. Going into this. And so we want to take and have podcasts broke down into, like, we'll talk about the foxhole principle, talk about the cookie jar principle, talk about the life caring, which is another concept, and so forth. So 20 to 30 minutes. And then uh, we've had quite a few people that have used these concepts already. Uh, and so then bring in and interview those people and similar things. And I've got like 14 or 15 people so far who want to be interviewed, and that's just without trying.
That's great, brother.
That's not even talking about people like you and other, that I can bring on who are doing the right things. So, yeah. So
Oh,
it's
anytime.
just, yeah, it's just trying to figure it out, how to getting it all doing, and getting like the media, and trying to get all your intros and
Oh
everything.
yeah. Oh yeah, 100%, man. I love it. You're about to embark on a fantastic journey. You know what I mean? Which is really awesome. I do this full time. This is what I do for a living. So
Oh,
I can't recommend it highly enough. I love it. So I can't wait to see where you land, man. It's gonna be great.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Uh,
I think it's going to be kind of a why not?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's gonna be awesome. All right, man. Well, when you get up there and you get your first 20 episodes done, man, I got to have you on my top 10 podcast, The Podcaster Nation, and we'll get you over there and get you some more pub, and get your name out there a little more.
Okay,
All
cool.
right, you got it. Standing invitation, man. So I'll I'll find you anyway, and I'll
Yeah.
keep up with you. So we'll connect, brother. This is a great way to kind of pull this together. It's been just magnificent sitting here and listening to your story, what you're working on, the stuff you're working on is incredible and so needed for these guys that are out there. And I love that you're doing that for your brothers. Before I, kind of, bring us together to close this up, let's make sure we get our contact info out to everybody. How can they reach you? How can they find out about the program? So on and so forth. Give me that. Give me that.
JohnnyGilpin.com.
Okay.
They can reach out to me at Johnny dot Gilpin at JohnnyGilpin.com is the easy way to find me. PA author, uh, and then I'm easy to find. I'm not hard to find at all. Tillman scholar, Warhorse. You can see some of the 3 articles I've written for the Warhorse is out there. Just type my name in, it comes up. So it's
Got it.
Johnny Johnnnie. A lot of stuff is it's Johnny L. Gilpin with a junior. You know, uh,
Nice.
yeah,
Perfect.
I do that because I when I was doing some stuff I didn't, and they pulled in some of my dad's transcripts, and all my grades went up except for my science grades. My overall GPA went up, but my science GPA went down. And then I had to go back and look, and so I had my dad's stuff in there.
Gotcha. All right, man. Perfect. All right, I'll make sure that all that contact information is in our show notes. And listen, I like to give everybody this chance to kind of wrap up a little bit. So I'm going to give you the floor for a minute. Is there anything that I didn't ask you? Is there anything that we talked about you want to double down on, or maybe just a parting word for all the men who are listening to this program right now? A lot of whom are veterans, a lot of whom are moved by what you're doing and probably very interested in it. Any last, parting shot for everybody in the last minute is for you.
Well, my last deal is what I'm trying to do is create a world where anyone who questions their place is reminded of their inherent belonging. And so, if you question that ever, if you're not listening or something, pick up the phone, especially for my veterans. I have done this myself. Uh, is to the 988 number. Call it, man. It saved my life. It saved a lot of friends in my life. So we belong, and whatever's going on right now is a very short instance in our lives, and you know we're still going to change the world, and you can change the world no matter what we do. Whatever you think is bad, you can take that response and you can change it. So pick up the phone, reach out to people. There's always somebody out there willing to listen.
Love it. Great way to close this out, man. Absolutely, 100%. All right, folks. Speaker, author, Johnnie Gilpin. Johnny, thanks for being with us today, man. For sharing your journey, everything you have going on, and just for being there for your brothers, man. I can't thank you enough, and thanks for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
You got it. Folks, it's been another absolutely awesome episode of the Power of Man podcast. The reason we have such powerful men come on here with such powerful missions and messages is because we are united in hoping that you find your power so that you can be a better protector, a better provider, a better leader tomorrow than you are today, so that you can be a better father, a better husband, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we want that for you is because you have value. It's because you matter. And it's because at the end of the day, you're worth it. You just have to believe it. Until next time.